You ready?
I'll try.
Okay, all right. So let's just start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up here, pretty much. I was born in Miami, Florida, but moved around a little bit as a little kid, but I've been here since 5th grade. So I went to North Springs High School and went to the University of Georgia, go Dogs, and didn't leave until 87. I've been going up north pretty much the whole time since, but I grew up here.
I knew that. So you went to school? You know that was a Georgia school. Ooh. Georgia school. What was your first job ever, and then out of college?
My first job was washing dishes at the Lark and Dove. My first job working for somebody who actually got income was washing dishes at the Lark and Dove on Roswell Road with a fake work permit because I was 12. But before that, I mean, hell, I was selling candy out the back of my mom's station wagon. I'd buy it for a penny piece and sell it to you for a nickel. And I was young enough that my mom made me go to bed, and people were still knocking on the door looking for candy. So that was my first introduction to entrepreneurship.
And what was the storefront for that business? Was it the back of a station wagon?
If you remember station wagons, you had sort of the back window would go down, and on the sides, sort of the wheel well, you could put the candy. So people could look through the window and see the candy, but then you had a storefront they could buy.
And first job out of college?
First job out of college, I went and worked for Arthur Andersen. I was an accountant. So I've been a technology guy for 25 years, but I have a very unusual technology guy background because I was an accounting major at Georgia and a CPA at Arthur Andersen for 5 years before I went back to business school.
So what was your first exposure to entrepreneurship? I guess you kind of said that it's the candy, isn't it?
Yeah, the candy did.
Did that make an impression on you, or is that just a thing that happened and later we're going to get to obviously the company you started?
Well, I don't know how conscious I was about it, but it was just something that I did and something that was sort of natural to me. But I was always sort of a very entrepreneurial kid. So when I was 11 or 12 years old, I think I remember had 18 yards. We would cut the lawns for people in the neighborhood. And just things like that. I have 3 brothers here in town, and we created like most people, college student painters, and we'd paint people's houses, usually not well. But that was to make money for college, because if we didn't make money, we didn't go to college. That was sort of the situation we were in.
Perfect. So do you have any hobbies?
None.
I got a couple slides up to stimulate your memory.
Up there now? Mm-hmm. All right, so the green thing in my hand there, as I understand it, I am a very intense, passionate person, but my Zen sort of thing is like to garden. And so I have 2 employees here with me, Mike Briggs and Kristen Henrica, who are sales folks in Atlanta. So if you need our services, they're here, but they're visiting. So you're going to learn this firsthand as well. So not only do I love to garden, I'm a competitive gardener. So I'm intense about everything. And that won Blue Ribbon. So. And the other thing is I've been a triathlete for many, many years, up until I've done 5 Ironman, but until I took this job with Vonage a little over 4 years ago, and my racing days have kind of ended with that job because I'm too busy. And then I tried to climb Mount Rainier one time.
How'd that work?
Not so well, actually. Not so well. Not so well. It was tough, man.
All right.
Weathered off.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So describe or outline your typical day. How many hours do you work? Do you exercise? What's this? Is it the same now as the CEO of a public company as it was when you were an entrepreneur?
I don't know. I mean, I always had a long work day, and like I'm sure all of us had. You look at me today. So I run a fairly decent sized public company, but I'm an entrepreneur at heart, no different than anybody else in this room. And so I've been through all the cycles of creating something from sort of a blank sheet of paper all the way to building it up and failing often and winning some as well. And so the stresses of that, I always try to work out. It's an important thing to kind of balance the day, but it's always been a very long day in terms of sort of
5 a.m., 4 a.m., or you're 6:30, 7?
It's like, it's funny, people ask, what are your superpowers? And one of my superpowers is sleep. I kid you not. I kid you not. I have, again, 3 brothers, and 2 of them are terrible sleepers. Terrible sleepers. Like, 4 or 5 hours restless every night. And people ask me, well, how much sleep do you get? And I go, 9. I mean, I sleep. And people go, and I travel like mad. And people say, well, my God, how do you sleep on an airplane? And I go, people say, I can't sleep on an airplane. And I go, I can't stay awake on an airplane. It's just different, so it's like that really helps me. But I'll wake up, early, I'll go work out in the morning. I like to do mornings. I work very late in the evening many times. But, and I live in Connecticut. It's my permanent home's in Connecticut for this current job. And then, so I keep an apartment in New Jersey where Vonage is based. So it gives me a lot of, kind of open end in the evening because my wife is home in Connecticut. So so I try to work out a lot if I can, but things interfere and I can't work out like I used to when I was a little younger, but I try still. I usually just hurt myself.
So what are your, if you could distill them down, because it's a big question, what are your kind of ideals or values?
I think about the value systems that we tried to create at Vonage, and many times it just comes down to what's the type of place I want to work, and so I'm really into I hate politics. I want everything to be open, honest, transparent, and very direct. There should be mutual respectfulness in an organization. Mike and Kristen have heard the term many times. I talk about hiring wicked smart people. So I'm a real big believer in that you better start with the good raw material and really good people. It's about, at the end of the day, it's about accountability and integrity. Do the right thing, but be accountable. It's not enough just to sort of do the right thing. We're not given blue ribbons other than for that zucchini. Now, you're not given blue ribbons for showing up. You got to perform, and it's ever more important in a public company environment. So, I'm big in accountability and integrity. And I think, that I'm trying to imbue in the company is also customer centricity, which I don't think we're a particularly great customer centric company. Right now, I'm trying to get there, and I'm trying to learn a lot about that, about what being, really customer centric is. And so. And then, you can sort of get, you've now heard me speak for about 5 minutes now. I'm fast, I'm passionate, I'm a little loud. It's, what I like to do. And fun is a really important part of my sort of quotient. If you're not laughing along the way, then I think you're making a big mistake.
What's your connection to Paul Newman?
Well,
something that he was passionate about.
Yeah. So in Paul Newman, the actor Paul Newman had created something called the Hole in the Wall Gang Camp, which is a camp for seriously ill kids. And so I've gotten involved with that, and I've been able to be a camp counselor, which is really fun. Which is sort of interesting. My boss, I've done it 2 summers now. Just for a week, they let somebody like me come in and be a counselor, and you sleep in the bunks with the kids and stuff. So my boss was like 22. Man, he was great. I'd follow him anywhere.
You didn't get fired?
No, I held my own for just
That's good.
More than a week. Apparently, got rid of him.
So, is there a person, or if you had to, you could do more than one, that has made the most impact on your life or career?
People ask me that question a lot, and I honestly don't. Sit back and say, okay, there's this particularly altruistic person that I'm going to follow, or this great intellect over here, or there's Jack Welch.
I thought you told me Gandhi was your.
Yeah. But it's like I don't really think about it that way. I'm pretty. I think sometimes people think about who am I going to follow. I don't think of it that way. It's hard for me to sort of even get my head around who you're going to follow. I think the point is that work hard, do the right thing, have good ideas, be open to mistakes. Revisit. It's the old adage: all decisions are bad. All decisions are bad. It's just what time period that they're defined around. So you have to revisit decisions, and if you're wed to the decision or wed to the facts that you made the decision on, and you're inflexible and unwilling to change, well, you're not going to evolve. And so just always be willing to break it and revisit it. But I don't really sort of look back and say, there are people that I admire, absolutely. But there's not somebody that I look back and say, gee, that almost set my North Star to that person.
So let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. Let's talk about Ad Outlet.
Yeah.
Is that where you made your first billion?
That's where I gave a good bit of it back. Actually, so Derek doesn't know, and I just told him this a little while ago. So the first entrepreneurial journey was a friend from business school who had started a company and brought me in. I was like employee number 3. So I was sort of part of the founding team, but he and another guy founded it. And it was named Advanced Health. And Advanced Health had this really very interesting trajectory, which went like this and then like that. So the way I always tell people, and having sort of been an entrepreneur for a long time, is I always look at the success of an entrepreneurial venture based upon where you hold the holiday party. So the first year we had it in a guy's apartment. And the second year we had it in a kind of a room, kind of a decent sized room in a hotel. And the third year we had it in the grand ballroom of the hotel. The fourth year we had it back in the guy's apartment. so it's just like, we got that thing public in 1996. We had no business being public. And we weren't remotely ready to be public. So, that was the first one. So we did fine financially, but it was a very bumpy ride. And those who are not math majors, this part is much more fun than that part. And so then I went to Ad Outlet afterwards. And so Ad Outlet was, I took whatever money I made in Advanced Health, plowed it into into Ad Outlet in the year 2000. Well, not
Exciting year.
Yeah, actually
Yeah.
99, which
Yeah.
looked even more attractive.
I hired 80 employees that year. I look back and think, what a stupid thing that was to do.
Another math major thing. We raised 30 million and sold it for
Yeah.
3. Again, math majors, that's not good. That was, and then I started Quickoffice, which was the company I sold to Google, which was a very, very good success. I started in 2002 with a friend, and
Was that the original name?
no, it was initially called Mobile Digital Media. And we had spun a product line out of Palm, remember the old PDA guys? Yeah. And they were, shedding assets like crazy. My friend had been Palm's chief operating officer, or a former chief operating officer. They were going through this management change like crazy. And so that's kind of where we found the opportunity, but he was sort of a big company guy and he didn't know how to do it, and I knew how to do it and how to finance it. So we were friends and we came together and did it. And just spun this product line off, initially called MDM, Mobile Digital Media, and then later on bought a little business whose product was called Quickoffice, renamed the company Quickoffice. And Quickoffice, real quickly, in the mobile world, and this is in 2002, so in 2002, mobile was the Palm PDA. And by 2002, Palm PDA had just gotten a radio in it. So prior to that, the PDA was a cradle dock device so you could transfer files from your computer by wire. There was no other way to do it. And it wasn't even a phone back then. This is before, at that time, around 2001, 2000, BlackBerry was still not a phone. That was just a, texting and email device.
So you remember when the interwebs were created?
You mean Al Gore?
Yeah, Al Gore's creation. Yes, yes.
I'm not that old there. So we built a version of Microsoft Office. So Microsoft obviously had Office, and they had this massive franchise, they still do, in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. We built a version of it that could operate in the non-Windows mobile environments. So obviously Office exists in Windows, and then back, literally 30 years ago, Gates made a deal with Steve Jobs to license it for Macintosh. But it wasn't available on mobile, on any mobile operating system other than Windows. And so back in the early 2000s, the dominant operating system for the PDA and then smartphone space was Palm. And then it was Nokia with something called Symbian. And all this stuff has died, which is sort of amazing now. Then obviously BlackBerry, and then only later was iOS and Android. And so we kept rewriting this suite to work in these other operating systems. And then, if you remember, smartphones got more and more capable. People started doing more work while mobile, so you had mobile email, and think about the attachment more often than not you get in your mobile email is a Word, PowerPoint, Excel, or maybe a PDF document. And so you had to have the ability to open it, and particularly in the Word, PowerPoint, Excel, to edit it. And again, in the early days of smartphone, you weren't doing a lot of work while mobile, and you remember if you got like a 3 megabyte PowerPoint, it would take you 10 minutes to download the damn thing. But then as you went from a narrow bandwidth world to fatter pipes out there, wireless pipes, and the devices themselves had greater screen fidelity, greater processing power, more battery power than color, not just black and white. Now people started doing more work while mobile. Then in 2010, entered the iPad. And the iPad took mobile productivity and it went like that. And so we were the default productivity. It used to say Quickoffice and Dropbox. You could leave your computer at home because you'd use your iPad, store your files in Dropbox, but you had all your email and then your ability to work with your Office documents. That's what we built, and it scaled really attractively, and that's why that's why Google bought it, because Google was trying to get docs, there still are, docs, slides, and sheets to be competitive with Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. And so we were sort of bullets in their war between Google and Microsoft. So that happened in 2012.
Can you disclose how much Google paid?
No. But we did well.
So the product,
almost as much as Patty could.
So the original product that you licensed from Palm had no relative basis to the eventual success of the company.
Matter of fact, we sold it. We did.
So that's the definition of a pivot.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, the company, the product line that we had spun out of Palm, and this is, particularly younger folks who in the audience won't remember, but before there was electronic download of content, which we're just, now it's, of course there's, electronic download of content. Your content frequently for a small form device came on a memory card that you'd snap in the side of the thing, either a sort of SD or an MMC card. So the product line that we spun from Palm was a publishing unit of third-party content that people would take as content, sort of make their PDA more useful. So it could be, there were productivity stuff like a backup card or like the Webster Dictionary, the Encyclopedia Britannica, things like that. Rand McNally maps, and these are old brands. And then there were games, literally entertainment stuff that we do. So games compilations like old Atari games and things like that we would bring to the small devices. And it was sold at physical retail. So it hung on the peg at Staples and places, a bunch of places that have since gone out of business. That business, the trends were not in that business's favor, obviously. And we did well for a couple years, but it was very clear that we needed to catch a faster train.
Now this is, I think, huge, this kind of thing, looking for nuggets for people to take away. You start a whole business, you acquire a technology, now you're talking about recognizing there's an issue or lack of opportunity, and you start making changes to the business.
If I would, as an entrepreneur, we all know nothing goes in a straight line. Nothing. That's why VCs, when they look at your prezos, and so often entrepreneurs want to drag you to here's my financials. I never look at financials because they're always wrong. They always will be wrong because nothing is going to go in a straight line. It's how adept you are at realizing things are not going to go in a straight line and adjusting along the way. So in that situation, first of all, when we spun this product line out, I just thought it was going to be a quick arbitrage and we were going to flip it. Candidly, we should have.
What year did you acquire the Palm technology?
October 2002.
And when did you sell Quickoffice?
In June of 12. So it was a 9.5-year hold for, as entrepreneurs, and that's tough. I was 51 years old when I sold that business. 9.5 years in, I'm like, man, I don't know how many more of these I got in me. So it's like those are scary. And so when I did the deal with my buddy and spun that product line, and basically I structured a deal, and this is what I'm pretty good at. I structured a deal where basically Palm gave us $1 million and 80.1% of the business, if you really distill it down. And so all I had to do is I'd raise $2 other $1 million in order for them to permit me to do it. And I thought, I'm going to take this deal and their support, because they then had a supply contract with us, and I'm going to flip it within a year. Candidly, I look back, even though we did extraordinarily well when we sold to Google 9 years later, probably should have. In terms of the return on time, I probably should have sold it, because who knows what the other things I would have done in the interim. But I decided to make a real business about it. In many respects, that was a mistake, because then I began to realize, as we were trying to make a real business out of it, that man, this retail distribution stuff, those, I don't know whose businesses are involved with retail, but I wasn't even familiar with MDF, market development funds, where I'm basically paying Staples for the privilege of having my product on their shelf. And if it didn't sell through, they'd stick it back to me and treat it almost like it was a consignment. I mean, it's a tough place to play. And so, and then, I'm putting digital content on analog media that has a cost of goods sold to it, and sticking and inventorying it and sticking on a peg. I mean, it wasn't a great business, we realized sort of after the fact. So then you sit back and say, okay, I'm about to run out of money. What do I do? And my own experience this is interesting as well. My advanced health, which I did from like 1995 to 1999, went well. Ad outlet, I lost a lot of people who invested with me in advanced health, reinvested in ad outlet. And then those again came into Quickoffice. Or at the time, mobile digital media. I wasn't willing to let those guys lose money. And so it may have been nothing more than just being stubborn about it, because I didn't want them to lose money, that I stuck with it. And then we were fortunate to kind of find the seam, but you had to change. And so we bought, again, this little company in Texas, moved out of California, where we had spun out of Palm in California, moved to Dallas, Texas. I was living in Connecticut all the time, so basically on an airplane most of the time. And we were able to rebuild this thing and got lucky in a lot of ways.
How important were good employees to that success, to that turnaround, or what do you want to call it, the pivot?
I mean, it's huge. You can't do it alone. I mean, all my entrepreneurial efforts have been with partners. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people. I think it's a lonely place to be without a partner, somebody you can trust. And
have those always worked?
What?
Partnerships, have they always worked?
They have worked, at least for a time. They worked for a time. I mean, my partner and I at Quickoffice split in 07. We're still wonderful friends. And quite frankly, in 07, the 07, we'd sort of gotten to a place of, somewhat stability. Remember, iPhone comes out in 07. We had no idea this was going to be as big as it was. And in some ways, we used to tease one another. It was a race to the door. We're like, this thing isn't big enough for the two of us. One of us has got to go do something else. And it was a race to the door, and he won the race. And so, he got a good job. And so, whatever, but it was, those 2002 to 2007, he was somebody that I could trust with my life. And I had a great deal of respect for him intellectually. And that helped a lot.
What about culture at that company?
I think that ultimately when it was I think setting culture. We although he was initially CEO and I was president CFO or something, he was more of an introvert and I'm more of an extrovert. And when he left, I think it was easier for me to create healthier culture. And I think the notion of co-CEOs you cannot do, I think that's difficult from a culture point of view. Because I think the organization really follows it follows the leader in a big way from a culture point of view. And I think the culture at the end was very healthy.
Do you invest in that? Is that something you were purposeful about?
I would say no, honestly. Honestly, I think that in startup land, I wasn't purposeful about it. I wasn't intentional about it with culture, because, and this again I think is a mistake as well. I mean, sort of, we all know Maslow's hierarchy in a sense. When you're in startup land, you're down there, you're worrying about oxygen and water, right?
Yeah.
And so those things that are more feel qualitative, and I'm going to work on culture and things like that, growth and development, things like that. It never sort of rose to that level of intentionality for me. Now, I'm the same person there than I am here in terms of wanting to be open, honest, transparent, and direct.
So that was part of your culture.
But I wasn't intentional about it.
Yeah.
At Vonage now, we're 2,400 employees, and we're taking something that was sort of a kind of old lethargic telco, and telco from a culture point of view is almost a dirty word, and we're trying to take that and move it into be a switched on, software company. So I always say, we're based in New Jersey. I say I'm trying to bring a little Silicon Valley to Jersey. And I think we've made a great deal of progress, but there we're incredibly intentional about it. So we've set, it's a longer story, but we've set an ambition about wanting to be a destination place to work. And so if you think about that, being a destination place to work is incredibly personal. So it could be to one person, well, I have a great, I like my coworkers, or I like my physical space in my office, or I like that we've got a great, view of corporate social responsibility, or I like that I make a lot of money, or, plus. What does being a destination place to work mean? So I think what we've tried to do from a cultural point of view is set that ambition, which is very qualitative. The words are evolve to a destination place to work. And that's one thing I did learn from Google. They're remarkable in terms of how they think about that. And then if I'm setting sort of a qualitative, ambitious goal, then you have to create stuff programmatic underneath it that is actually more, trackable. It's the old adage of, what gets managed, what gets measured gets managed. So the three legs of that stool are comp and ben, culture, and growth and development. And so programmatically, what are the things that we're doing within comp and ben? What is our equity philosophy in a company of 2,400, with over $1 billion in revenue? How do you create an ownership mindset like a startup? It's not easy, but that's aspirationally what you want to get to. So what is our equity philosophy, just as an example? We've gone through just in the last year and now extended, we used to extend equity to about 400 or 500 people in the entire company. Now it's everyone, including hourly care employees.
Does that start with you?
Yeah, that's in the last 7-8 months. Now it's very small, but now everybody in the company has their own Fidelity account where they're tracking their RSUs, the restricted stock units. Culture. Culture, again, is corporate social responsibility. It's a leadership team that is open, honest, direct, and transparent. It is a engaging place to work physically. It's having, the ability to move within, follow your passions. Those are things of culture, I think. And, we've now created the Vonage Foundation. We've moved from a paid time off program to a DTO program, discretionary time off. So it's unlimited vacation. Now it's still approved by managers, but the notion is trying to create, you're a professional. If you need time off, take it. I'm not going to, hold you under my thumb and say you only have these number of days left. We've created VTO, volunteer time off. Again, because we want to be good corporate citizens and not the corporate social responsibility. There's all elements of culture, but it's very personal. VTO, or the Vonage Foundation, which we fund with 1% of net income, can turn on some people and others that could care less. But it's very personal. And then the other is growth and development. And we've created all sorts of very specific training programs, put in tuition reimbursement, but you got to have good grades for degree programs, seriously, and put in these things, accelerated leadership development program, emerging leaders program, those things. But these are, I'm going on and on. These are programs that I find that have been, I never would have been sufficiently intentional about them in a small company environment. I didn't have the cash to do it, and maybe sometimes I was, hell, too often we're scared to death about next week's payroll. And so you're just too low on the Maslow's hierarchy to worry about that stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah. Makes sense. Well, if you had to go back in time, what one thing would you tell the ad outlet Alan Masarek, CEO?
Don't do it, no. I have a tremendous amount of respect for entrepreneurs because I know how hard it is. And, Ad Outlet was, a very, specific failure. And I didn't know what I didn't know back then. And I think there's part of being an entrepreneur which is good, sort of blind confidence is good to some extent and bad to some extent. And so I was trying to create in Ad Outlet was a B2B exchange for the buying and selling of advertising. And I didn't ultimately understand what was so entrenched on the buying side, the media buyer or the advertising agency or the brand itself, and the media company, the company who owned the advertising inventory. Whether it's, impressions on a website or, billboards along the highway. There are systems that are, really control that. And so, it was a weird time, back we funded in 99, and then again in 2000, before the, wheels came off the bus at that time. So we had money, and we scaled really quickly, but I don't think we still didn't understand our industry well enough. I personally didn't. I absolutely didn't. And so I didn't know what I didn't know. Now again, when, those of us who remember, the blow up in 2000, 2001, I look at it and we woke up early and said, this is broken. This is broken. I remember a lot of folks know, the way I always describe it is so many businesses with failed business models, but capital was liberal. Capital was available in 98 and 99. And then nothing was available following literally April of 2000 when the window shut. So what we did well is we woke up, and said, this is broken and not going to get any better, and there's not going to be any more money. And we woke up early and we started to do things to try to transact the company, change the model. Now again, it was still a failure, but most companies that I knew at the time just crash and burn. They just, at some point the doors closed because they ran out of money. So we didn't let that happen. But it's still, so I always say it had as elegant an end as it should have or could have in the circumstances. And it was a crazy frothy time, but one of the, as entrepreneurs, is our problem being too late or is our problem being too early? My experience, always being too early. So the idea of Ad Outlet, 5 or 6 years later, it was Yahoo or Google, I can't remember, bought a company named Right Media that did the exact same thing for $680 million. We're early. We're always early. There wouldn't be an entrepreneurial opportunity if we weren't early. But it's being too early and understanding what is going to take for the behaviors to modify it actually to scale. I serve on the board of a private company right now, and actually chair of the board. And I love the CEO. He's a dear friend, and he is just he's too damn optimistic. He's just too damn optimistic. In the world, he's like, yeah, we need to get X number. We're gonna get these 20 deals done in the fourth quarter. Okay, right, so I got the post-mortem in October. We got two and a half basically deals in October, and they're tinier deals. So it's all funding. These deals are his money, his lifeblood, and so it's but he's just hope springs eternal. He's we're gonna get it done, but it takes longer. We all know that. The sales cycles are tough.
So there's 10 questions that originally came from a French series hosted by Bernard Pivot. And they're better known as the questions that James Lipton has asked every single guest on Inside the Actors Studio. So I'm going to ask them to you. What is your favorite word?
You're going to ask me all 10 of these?
Yep.
My favorite word. A pass.
Well, here's the yin yang for that. What's your least favorite word?
Oh, all right. So, I'm not a big fan of sort of excuses and such. So I'm my favorite. It's not maybe not a word. I like kind of forward-looking energy and stuff, and people who are sort of resistant all the time to that. In my view, you kind of get on the train or you find a different train.
All right. Let's maybe answer this question. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I think you can't, well, for me, I've got this, I have big appetites. That's me. I mean, I have this passion for everything and just learn. I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning new things. I like creating new things. I like the challenge of what we as entrepreneurs do. And so that's what I'm kind of blessed. I don't come to work because I'm specifically worried about this dollar or that. I enjoy it. Less work-life balance in many ways.
What turns you off?
I don't like narrow thinking and sort of negativism. I don't like blaming. I don't like people who are political. I think it goes back to this philosophy about being sort of open, honest, direct, and transparent. So somebody who's not that way, I'm not a big fan of. I think I'm a huge believer as well. It's like all blame goes inward, all credit goes outward, and you find executives, smaller businesses or larger, there are certain people who are just not wired that way.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck, Derek, I don't really know.
What sound or noise do you love?
My corp.com, Joanne's going to kill me for that.
Probably.
I'm in real trouble now. Say again.
What sound or noise do you love? We can always edit that last one out.
God bless you. Should be so mad. Sound or what?
What sound or noise do you love?
Clapping.
That's a good one. What sound or noise do you hate?
So James Lipton did this for 20 years or so? These 10
1994 till last September. What sound or noise do you hate? Many famous actors have answered these questions. You're in famous footsteps.
Okay. Sound or noise that I hate?
Yeah.
A door shutting. It's metaphorical.
Good answer. Metaphorical. I like it. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Teaching.
What profession would you least like to do?
I'm not a big fan of heights, so like window washing.
That's out. Yeah, no window washing. Okay.
No window washing.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Wow, it's about damn time. I have this thing. I want to get people's opinion as to they think this is sick. My wife thinks this is sick. So my birthday's Wednesday, but a year ago, 2 days ago, I turned 57. And I said, well, okay, birthdays are an opportunity to reflect. And I said, all right, I'm getting 50 more years done, right? So I bought a watch. You can go on Amazon and buy it. It's called the Ticker. Now it's backwards. So I set the ticker for 50 years out. And I sit it in my closet, and the crystal faces out. I'm not in my closet as a home in Connecticut that often, unfortunately. I walk in there, and I'm telling you something, it's incredibly thought-provoking, because look, none of us are getting out of here alive. So and I look at this thing, and I'm like, I've got 49 years and 2 days left. And I think that's very focusing. It's carpe diem, seize the day. So it's like, I think about that a lot. My wife thinks it's, morbid and crazy and stuff. It may be, but I like the idea. It's a reminder that seize the day. I got, it's about to go from 49 to 48. That's going to bum me out when I see that.
You stole my thunder. What's the magic of this date right here?
This is the day after my birthday. Oh, I'll be dead.
Not according to Facebook. I looked it up today, but that's good. That's an internet birthday. For security purposes, I recommend that. Good. Excellent. Everyone should have an internet birthday, so that's good. So happy birthday.